because I know that in the social media, everyone wants to be the expert. Here's how I would like to approach this. Thank you for that. What I want to dedicate the rest of my life to is helping you find that expert inside of you so that you don't listen to us anymore. Stop listening to the talking heads. But there's a process that you have to go through to be able to get there. It's not something that a lot of us do on our own, right? And so that's the dedication to that, is how do I help you become and listen to that expert? Because that expert exists. It's just covered up with the golden Buddha concept, right? Which says we just covered it up with a whole bunch of trash and dirt and trauma and real events that have happened in your life. We got to clean that stuff away to get to who you really are. And that's the master inside of you.
David, we are so excited to talk to you today. I cannot wait to get into your book, Swords of Illumination, and also just get to know you a little bit more. We've had the privilege to work with you for some time now, and it's just been awesome learning more and more about you. I would love to start with you as a young kid swimming in the Caribbean, scuba diving, and just ask how you went from that to getting interested in entrepreneurship.
Well, fascinating connection. You know how the universe works. Man, by the way, so good to see you again, man. I couldn't wait for this conversation. No. So interestingly enough, I grew up in the Caribbean, the Florida Keys, right? Those little dots on the end of Florida that everybody sees, but like, what is going on down there? And it was truly a privilege. Fascinating part of that is we actually grew up in a canal system. So your house was always sitting on these canals and so you'd literally walk out your backyard, jump in your boat and head out into the islands and the tropics and the Caribbean, and mind-blowing stuff, right? But you kind of forget about, it's like living in the mountains. You forget about how precious it is. Well, I will tell you, there was two things that reminded me how precious it was, and they were swimming in our canal system every day. There were two bottlenose dolphin, and they were named Sua and Doll. And they were actually owned by a lady down there who was a multi-gazillionaire, and she owned most of the real estate in the Florida Keys. Betty Brothers was her name, and real estate mogul. And these two beautiful dolphins. So we get off school, right? Every day you jump in the canal system with these two bottle, and you'd swim with Flipper, basically, you know? So truly a remarkable life. But in the midst of doing that, it was a holiday destination location for people. They were coming from all over the world, all over the country. And it really gave me a unique perspective. And I didn't know I was doing this at the time. You know, it sounds like you created and designed all this. No, man, this is the universe taking care of me, right? And so I started actually talking to people. And it really was an interview just like this. And I was fascinated by how people with such immense wealth had created that. How did you do that? And that was my primary question. So whether it was, working in the world of construction and I met, people I was working on the houses, or being a charter boat mate on a boat, on a dive boat or a fishing boat, or whatever I was doing, the captains were all like, Dave, you got to leave the customer alone. They're on vacation. You got to stop bothering them. I couldn't help myself, guys. I was just too curious. And so I just started asking all these questions. And I didn't know it. I didn't know to ask the entrepreneur question. I was just fascinated with how people became successful. And so that really turned into this passion, obsession is a better word for it than that, of truly understanding how people work, how this physical plane works, and how the universe contributes and supports that work. So that's been my journey so far.
I also want to ask, just to follow up now, and I had the privilege to spend a day with you, 2 days with you. I forget how long it was. A lifetime sometimes it feels like. But I had the privilege to spend time with you, and I just couldn't wait to re-ask you these questions, to be reminded of these things that you've learned, that I've learned. And I'm really curious, though, of how you blend spirituality and entrepreneurship, because it's really an interesting approach to business in general. Most people say keep them separate. They don't have anything to do with each other. But you've kind of come up with this concept that blends both, and you say they work together beautifully.
Yeah, so what's so wonderful about it is that I didn't have to figure out how it worked together. I just had to start living the experience to discover how it actually works together, right? So the fascinating thing is that when you enter this realm or this dimension of knowledge, you have to understand that we're not learning this stuff. We're remembering this stuff. This is who we are. Our soul connection. We've forgotten that. And it's easy to forget that because we're swimming literally in an ocean of forgetfulness juice. It's actually a spiritual term called Maya energy that we are constantly. I mean, seriously, what did you have for breakfast this morning? Well, I got that. What did you have for breakfast last week? And think about how many things that you have like, I remember that. How come I haven't done? And when we forget those things, we stop applying those things. So interestingly, along my journey, I actually started studying this martial art of the samurai, which is called Aikido. So the idea behind Aikido is that if you lost your sword or your weapon when you were fighting in warfare, that someone else still had a weapon and you didn't have that any longer, you couldn't stick your arm up to block a sword or kick them or anything else. You had to learn how to blend with them. So Aikido is the art of blending things. So I took that symbol, that metaphor, and I was like, what else could that approach to? What else could we apply that approach of blending things into? And then I saw it. I saw the connection between us as humans, whether it's in business or family or anything else we do on this planet, and the spiritual connection. And then, guys, listen, I was hooked. I was like, holy crap, there it is. Now, when you have one of those great ideas, it doesn't mean everything comes to you all at once, right? Like I'm absolutely certain about this. It takes time. And that's what the last 35 years of my life has been dedicated to is I know there's an answer to this. I just got to stay disciplined and committed to it. The loving Father that put me on this planet would never put me here without having structure and system and a way to play this game and win at it. I have to figure out what that is. And so that's been my journey. And that's what I'm excited about sharing with people.
And this book, Swords of Illumination, is the culmination of the discoveries that you have had so far. And you shared with us before we pressed record that you wrote this so that in a future lifetime, you could come back and rediscover some of these things. So before we get to that, do you think some of the books that you've read and applied in your life thus far were written by an earlier version of yourself in some way, shape, or form?
Wow. I had never thought about it that way. I don't have that resonance with other books. Now, listen, there are some remarkable books on this planet right now as we speak. There's no question about that. And it almost seems like as I have identified who I want to be, my identity and my frequency, my attractor factor actually attracts me. I'll go into Barnes and Noble and I'll actually go through the thing and all of a sudden this book will just catch my attention. How does that do that? Right? So when I pick up a book, I've definitely noticed that I'm not resonating with the book like, there's a deep knowingness that I wrote that or participated in some way, shape, or form. But I will tell you that the themes that come out of those books absolutely resonate with me. Like it speaks to my soul when I read certain. And then there's plenty of books that don't resonate with me at all. It's like, okay, moving on from that one, But there is an absolute deep resonance, a deep knowingness that my soul speaks to me and goes, this is something you want to stick with. This part of that book, that chapter, that idea, whatever it is, there's always something that brings up a theme that makes sense. And those themes have been brought together in the Swords of Illumination program.
And when you were thinking about documenting all of your discoveries into a book, how did you choose to write in a fable format compared to a more standard how-to type business book?
So one of the parts of the process is that when you start to identify, how do you create an identity, right? Because in the book, it talks specifically about you're not here to discover who you are. You're actually here to create who you are. And that's the major breakthrough in my life over this past 35 years is that, holy crap, I was searching for this person called David Olcott, right? And when you start taking a look at the very successful people, and it doesn't matter who you want to mention, whether you like them or don't like them, they have these themes about them. They have these characteristics about them. And so as you go through the process of the Swords of Illumination, you are going to identify what are the characteristics you love about that person, not that person, because you can't become that person. I couldn't become Tony Robbins or Donald Trump or Taylor Swift. I'm David Olcott, but the characteristics are the shared human experience. Those are the behaviors I'm looking for, right? And so interestingly enough, one of the characteristics of the great authors I loved was a gentleman named Og Mandino. And his style of writing has always been in this fable, this odyssey, this quest kind of thing. And I was fascinated with that. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to write a book to myself and my future self, right, what book would resonate with me that I'd have to read it? Because I wanted that book just to smack me in the face and go, hey, pay attention to me. And that's why we wrote it in that fable style, because that's what hits me. When I read a great fable around this, and then I can learn about how this place really works, oh, you got me.
There are so many follow-up questions I want to ask. But first, I just want, maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you got into the spirituality stuff in the first place. Like, what were maybe it was books? Did you grow up in this? Like, how did you get into this world to begin with?
Wow. I followed a very different road in my early life because I really had been mentored and coached and taught with people about my ego. My ego was my driving force. There was no question about it. I had a sense that it didn't always work for me, but I followed that path completely. I mean, I got involved in politics. I got involved in banking. I got involved in law. I mean, I went full on. As you can tell me, I'm kind of that personality that just, right? So I went at it. And as a matter of fact, in my stint in real estate, I used to work for the gentleman who became the #1 selling real estate agent in the world at the time. I was his business manager. And we were selling in Star Island. So Star Island in Miami Beach, if you guys know about that place, I mean, that's where everybody goes. That's where you want, if you're, today it's the billionaires. At the time I was doing, it was the millionaires, who there weren't a lot of them at the time. But I mean, Sylvester Stallone, Madonna, Prince, I mean, all the celebrities you could think about at the time were buying real estate in Miami. And we were selling that to them. And I was living in South Beach. Our office was a yacht. And we would actually take people on this yacht to go visit these through the canal system and the intercoastal to go to here's your multi-million-dollar property. What do you think? I mean, come on, man. This was living the life that we dream of, right? And I was absolutely depressed. I was like, this can't be it, guys. This cannot be it. I've got all the money in the world. I had access to, at the time, the women in the world. Magnificent beauties. I'm talking about on South Beach. I'm driving a multi-million-dollar car. I'm living in this ranch. I am in it. Unhappy like I've never been before. There's got to be something more. And that's what I was seeking. And so that's when I was like, I got to figure out something else. And I went on a different path, and I got this book. And that book absolutely shifted things. And that book was called Conversations with God. And yeah, exactly. And for the last 27 years, I've not only studied that work, mentored with the author of that book for all those years. And I will tell you, the joy and the bliss and the happiness returned pretty fast. And I started realizing that I actually was making more money when I was happier than when I was depressed. And said, well, Dave, of course that makes sense. And that's not the model that my ego was choosing, guys. I had to listen to a different part of myself. And that was the reintegration of my soul. And we all have this. We just aren't listening to it. And so that's been my obsession with getting back to, how can I not just listen to myself? By the way, I did that. I went totally the other way. I totally swung the pendulum, right, from my ego, and I went right to my soul, right? You can imagine I'm in white linen, suits all of a sudden, and I'm walking around higher than this and self-righteous. And let me just tell you what you should be doing. And oh my God, dude. And I was like, that's not working, right? I was like, who wants to listen to that guy? I don't even want to be around that guy. And so what I learned along the path was I had to figure out a way to integrate my soul and my ego into who I wanted to be. And I will tell you, I truly believe that is the solution for the major problems that we're dealing with, not only in our country, but in the world, that we need to start developing leaders with this ability, with this characteristic. And when you have that, this place is going to change.
Nick, before you
David,
go, I just wanted to say, I laughed so hard because you said Conversations with God, and it's really interesting because I've read a lot of spiritual books, but not that one. And I've heard of it, but it hasn't really been on my radar that much. I was going to board a plane and I was trying to download a podcast, and somehow, and I literally do not know how this happened, but instead of downloading the podcast, that book downloaded. And I went, on the plane, you don't have any signal, or I didn't have any internet or anything. I went to go play the podcast. I was like, oh no, where is it? Getting so frustrated. And then I saw this book download, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm listening to this book. And literally, this was just a couple days ago. And that book has kind of flattened me entirely. And I'm just diving into it. But it's like, whoa, of course. So I'm excited. Anyway, Nick, I just wanted to say that because it was just such a synchronicity.
Well, hold on. We can't move past this moment. There was some divine intervention. Let's talk a little bit more about what has flattened you so far, Luke.
The biggest point, the biggest thing that I realized, and it's just what David said, was the discovery of you create your future. And it's like, I kind of conceptually, maybe, I don't know, in my knowledge, I felt like I got that. But the way that the book just laid it out, I was like, oh, that's what it means. And it's just like this ultimate taking responsibility for your life, giving yourself grace, non-judgment, forgiveness, and moving forward to create the future that you want. And it was so beautiful because they described gratitude really early on. I'm not even that far in this book, by the way, but they described gratitude really early on, almost as this manifestation tool. And I didn't really see gratitude that way until then, which was really fascinating too. So I actually would love, David, to hear your take on gratitude, because I feel like in my life, gratitude has been this thing that I do and I practice, but I didn't really think about it in terms of the future, in terms of being grateful for the money that I will make or the life that I will have. So I would love just to hear your perspective on that too. Anyway, this podcast isn't about me, but that I just so crazy.
Well, when you really break it down, that's why I love Neil's work with Conversations with God. And by the way, I don't know how many books there's like 9 series in the books, and you're just on book 1. So man, enjoy the adventure, because and by the way, buckle up, because man, it takes you down the rabbit hole. And so what I love about the Conversation with God material and Swords of Illumination is that conceptually you start to get an idea of like, oh, this is how this physical plane works. Oh, this is how the spiritual energy works. Now we need to bring the human being into it. And that's that third element, the third dimension that the Swords of Illumination really focuses on, because there's been enough masters on the planet who have talked about this stuff conceptually and your connection with God and, its energy and frequency and all these things. There's such a myriad of masters who have said this and articulated way better than I ever will. What we really wanted to focus on was the human experience of it. How do I, as a human, take that concept and make it practical? And that's a huge word here at Samurai Success, because I will tell you, I have met some magical people in my lifetime, truly remarkable and truly insightful and truly full of wisdom. But when you really get down to take that application and take it to an application level, really apply it in the physical realm, you're going to have to understand that it moves past frequency and concept into this thing called programming. And programming is what drives us as human beings. Whether we like to think ourselves as a machine or not, Nikola Tesla was very clear. This is a meat machine. This is an avatar. You are in it for a short period of time, and then you get to take off. And that's what's so fascinating about our fascination with material things. We think from our ego perspective that that's all this is about. This is what we're here to do. And it's the money, it's the girls, it's the guys, it's the house, it's the car. You don't get to take any of that with you guys. Logically speaking, then that can't be what this place is about. If you can't take it with you, then what's its purpose? And the purpose becomes very clear that this place is about your experience. Experiencing these things, not having these things. It's having the experience, not the material things. And that is generated by you and your programming from an unconscious level. Now, that being said, that programming is fueled by something. And that fuel that you and I are talking about, finally getting to your question, your fuel is your emotions and your feelings. whoever you say you are, if you're going to play the victim, you're probably not going to live in joy and bliss and gratitude, because your identity sets the stage for what fuel takes you to your destiny. And those are your emotions and feelings. But when you set the stage where you are the sage or you're the mentor or the coach, you're going to have to choose a very different fuel, and gratitude fits a lot better for that identity than it does for the victim. And by the way, being a victim this lifetime is an important role for people to play. In this physical plane, you have to have contrast. The law of contrast dictates that in order to have up, you've got to have down. Left, you have to have right. Tall, you have to have short. Heavy, you have to have thin. So being a victim is a very important fabric of this thing. It's not bad. We keep saying that that's a bad thing. Do you know how boring this place would be if everybody was like you guys? Seriously, we're all together. We're all the same. It would be what we would have nothing to talk about, for God's sakes. Contrast allows for experience, and we've forgotten that, and we judge that, and judgment takes us away from gratitude, and judgment fuels then who we say we are, and it takes us in a very different direction than love or gratitude or bliss or joy or any of the other 34,000 emotional states you could choose from. 34,000. And all of those are fuel for who you say you are. Gratitude is such an amazing place of abundance, and what it does for you is truly amazing.
It's one of my all-time favorite words. In fact, I have it tattooed in a few different formats because I love it so much as a daily reminder. David, I have so many questions, and I might have a hard time articulating some of them, but the first one is this. For somebody listening to the podcast today that's in one of those dark moments, they're currently playing the victim role, and they're listening to you say, okay, money, mansions, cars, women, that's not the goal. That was driven by ego. And they go, okay, I get that, but I haven't experienced any of that yet, and I feel a strong pull towards it. Do you have to go so far down the ego path to eventually realize that the soul path, or a combination of ego and soul, is the right direction? Or can you pivot without experiencing all of the emotions and kind of just go head towards the good ones? And I'm not sure if that entirely made sense, but that's kind of what I'm trying to get to.
Yes, and your question is actually brilliant. So let's dive into it. Our ego is going to use a language called or, this or that. There's a great symbol right behind me, the yin yang symbol that we've designated as samurai success. This is actually our logo with the incorporation or integration of the yin yang into it, which reminds us that in Western's philosophy, we have this heads or tails mentality. And that mentality is part of our programming. It's our belief system, and belief systems drive all your behaviors. Okay, so you're not getting away with that. Unless you change that belief, your behaviors are going to be congruent with that. Or you're going to have this thing called cognitive dissonance, where you're going to feel suffering because like, oh, something's not right here. If those things don't line up, you're going to have this emotional state called suffering. If you're suffering, something's out of alignment. Your beliefs and your values are not aligning with your behaviors. So this or concept is so integrated, so programmed into us that we see things as mutually exclusive. What I want to share with you and remind you of today is that the cars, the women, the things like this, and then being able to go on this other path without all that stuff, this and that are possible. It simply is about who you say you are. Are you a person like me who is incredibly, stubborn? If you guys are as stubborn as I am, you're going to take the long road to be able to get through that, because I apparently have to have personal verified experiences for everything. I don't seem to learn well from other people's experiences. How did I choose that? I want to let you know I chose that. I do not have to choose that. I could be and have chosen to be much more enlightened a lot sooner. But this pathway was so important for me to get there. What's important about it, brother, is that no matter which path you choose, is you stop judging the path you chose, because judgment only takes it longer down the same path. So I want to let you know, in this magnificent experience of this universe that we've been given, we can make choices, and we do all the time. So if you don't want to choose to take the long path, then you're going to have to take a long, deep look into what's going on in your world. If you want to take the long path, either way, you've got to learn to enjoy it. Because if you don't, it's just going to take longer for you to get through it.
I'm so fortunate that I do learn from other people's experiences. And
You're my opposite. I love you.
I didn't have to go super far left in order to go right. And now I'm using that heads or tails language again, but you sort of get the point. I was introduced to the world of personal development books, and I embraced it. I dove in, I read as many books as I could. I try to implement all of the material that I can. And there's an interesting quote I'd like to read quickly from your book, Swords of Illumination. And you had just referenced the Book of Five Rings, and then you go on to say, since his father's death, he spent nearly every evening reading from the scrolls, immersing himself in each word, each story, and each lesson they had to offer. He became so well versed in the scrolls that he could recite them from memory. He filled his mind with every bit of knowledge in the hopes that wisdom would come to him, and with it an invitation to the school of Aspen. After 3 years, Yoshi was still waiting. What I loved about that section of the book is that you talked about intensely studying this material. And only when you intensely study this material can you truly absorb it and apply it to your life. So my question is kind of this, I suppose. What are your thoughts on all these book summary apps and the shortcuts and all of the get rich quick type things that are out there versus truly taking the time to study information?
You want to get me in trouble with your audience, don't you?
I think you and I view it from the same perspective, so I'm trying to get a little bit of justification for everybody else out there.
See if we're having the same shared experience with it.
Yes.
I think it's rational to say and logical to say that if you take shortcuts, you're going to have gaps in your knowledge base. And what you said just so beautifully about this is that we have this fundamental programming in our life, our belief system that says knowledge is power. And very clearly, as you read through the book, and I don't know where you're located in there, it starts to evolve a new principle that you start to realize, holy crap, knowledge is not power. It's the application of that knowledge to create a personal verified experience that creates the power within the individual. We have had multiple things in our history over the last thousands of years where great conquerors have taken this idea that knowledge is power, and they've destroyed knowledge. We've changed our entire history, as you guys know, because people have been taking out this knowledge, and yet we're still surviving. And that should be illuminating to the place that says all that knowledge is stored in a cloud anyway, and you can access that not through a book or a library or whatever's been destroyed on this planet. That knowledge is sacred, and you have access to it through your soul. The great library of all knowledge is available to you. You don't have to figure stuff out, is what I'm saying. What you have to do is figure out how to get the hell out of your own way so you can be quiet enough to source that great library called the cloud, the knowledge, whatever you think. And then when you are able to source that and apply that, that's when your true power comes through. And here's how it works. When you have knowledge, by the way, all on social media and stuff like this and things, and I'm not beating up social media, even though we're new to it. There's some really great folks out there, but most of us in this genre have a lot of knowledge that we're sharing with people, but you can feel that there's something missing. And the something that's missing is the frequency of experience of that knowledge. And that is the game changer. When you have taken that knowledge and you've applied it to yourself, and you now have a personal verified experience that you know how that works, you are unstoppable. And there's a frequency that you generate and you emulate with that people feel from you. It's different people have different ways of reading people. I get that. But when you meet someone, when they enter that room and they have this sense of knowledge and they've really applied it and they've really won because of it, there is a different energy that comes from them. And that's what we're really after, because that allows for this connection, Nick, that you and I are having right now that goes, man, this is cool stuff, because it resonates with us. It makes sense. I'm not selling you on this. It's like I'm saying stuff that you already know. And that's the connection. And that's from the experience that makes the difference.
So much here.
Shortcuts don't get you there, man. Shortcuts and apps don't get you. Sorry, I'm in trouble.
Oh, we got the soundbite. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
By the way, David, you have the energy that pulls people in that says, wow, he's saying a lot of things that I need to pay attention to and remember.
And I thank you for that, my brother. Seriously, because I know that in the social media, everyone wants to be the expert. Here's how I would like to approach this. Thank you for that. What I want to dedicate the rest of my life to is helping you find that expert inside of you, so that you don't listen to us anymore. Stop listening to the talking heads. But there's a process that you have to go through to be able to get there. It's not something that a lot of us do on our own, right? And so that's the dedication to that, is how do I help you become and listen to that expert? Because that expert exists. It's just covered up with the golden Buddha concept, right? Which says we just covered it up with a whole bunch of trash and dirt and trauma and real events that have happened in your life. We got to clean that stuff away to get to who you really are. And that's the master inside of you.
All right, David, we have talked a lot about spirituality and all this stuff, but I would love for you to maybe just bridge the gap between the spiritual and then the business that you have currently and all the, I guess all the business aspects to what you do.
Well, then getting right down to it, man, what people really want in business is this clear connection. There's too much of a selling knowledge, right? Let me tell you how I'm going to do this for you and make you successful. Okay, that's an approach. It seems to be working. We've been doing it for hundreds of years. But aren't we looking for something different? Aren't we looking for something authentic? How do you help me get to a place where I can then do this on my own? And that's the next level of what we're talking about, is how do we do that? Well, in order to be able to do that, you have to let go of the ego, which is very physical based, and we got to start connecting with our soul. And you have a soul, I have a soul. It's just listening to that. So that is your guide for what we want to do. So how do you get access to that? Well, we have to move all the other stuff out of the way so we can really start listening to that. And the very first key behavioral indicator, KBI, if you will, that will let you know if you're on that path is you stop the mind chatter. And I will tell you, for me especially, it was devastating because I was always being distracted by all this talk and like, where was I getting all this from? And it was so distracting. So I get focused on a project, I start on it, and then somebody would say, oh, do this over here. And then I'm over here, and then that's not getting done. And then and the mind chatter was killing me. Most people aren't comfortable in their own silence. Do you know why? Because they don't like to spend time with themselves. And until you really love yourself and really love spending time with yourself, that chatter is going to continue. Till you know who you are, that chatter continues. So finding and creating this identity is what gives you purpose. It what gives you the fulfillment that you're really after. And that's the starting point before you dive into anything business or anything in relationships or anything else on this planet. If you don't do that work, you're going to always feel like there's something missing. So how does spiritual and business? There is no separation, Luke, on this one. Yet we've separated them. We separated them on purpose so we can understand them. But now that we understand them, we've got to integrate them. We've got to put them back together. And that's what's going to change.
I love that. And it reminded me of a Ram Dass quote that I just recently read. I'm going to butcher it a little bit. But it's something like, I can do nothing for you but work on myself. You can do nothing for me but work on yourself. And I've just, like, when I read that, it's like, oh, it's so true. Every single time that I have gone within, accepted myself more, loved myself more, I'm able to show up for the people that I love even more. So it makes total sense that you start with yourself. And what a beautiful, what a beautiful lesson. And then also reminded me too, what you were talking about earlier. Nick, you say this quote a lot, and I think it's by Napoleon Hill, but it's action is the true measure of intelligence.
Yeah, action is the real
Okay.
measure of intelligence. Yeah.
So that quote, like just bringing it back to everything that you said, it's like you have to take action on these things before you can find that fulfillment that you're actually looking for, which is so beautiful. Now, with the clients that you work with, is it something that people come to you for and that's what they're actually looking for? Or, I mean, I guess eventually you get there, but when people first come to you, what are they looking to do? What are they looking to build? What are they looking to create?
So, wow, lots of stuff to unpack there for sure.
Just a small question.
As you always do. Let's start small, shall we? So going back to your first thing about this, the masters have been saying what you and I are talking about for thousands of years, right? This isn't the first time this information has come through, but maybe it's time for us to listen to it now, because I think we're finally at a place that we're frustrated enough, that we've done enough with the chaos. There's got to be something different, and we're looking for alternative, which has been available to us all along. So now it's about connecting to a source that we can trust. Well, stop connecting to me and start connecting to your source. That's what all the great masters have said. And that great source that you have is your soul. And that soul is connected to a much higher source. What's confusing about this connection is that we're connecting to our ego, thinking it's our soul, and acting as if it's not. And you can see it very clearly. Here's how you would see the difference. And this discernment is so important. We've been programmed our whole life to not work on us because it's selfish. Your whole life, my whole life, if you've grown up like I have, and I don't care what gender, creed, race you are, you have been taught that working on you is selfish. And you should stop doing this. You should take care of everybody else. Okay, let's unpack that. How do I take care of you if I haven't taken care of me? It starts to break down immediately, because the thing is that this quote will really help. You cannot give something away you don't possess. If you want to guarantee there's brownies at the Christmas party or the holiday party, what do you need to bring to the holiday party? Brownies. If you want respect in a relationship, what do you have to bring? If you want love in a relationship, what do you have to bring? If you want trust in a relationship, what do you have to bring? It just starts to flow. And then it starts to realize, holy crap, I need to get me to a level of respect. I need to love me. I need to work on me so that I can move me out of the way and truly be in service to you. Now, you and I could go down all the conspiracy theories in the world about why people are teaching us. Listen, if you guys haven't noticed this, I want you to observe with me. This is a competitive world. Why do we keep imagining that people are telling us things that help you become more competitive with them? That doesn't make sense to me. Not as a strategist. They would never do that. So they're not primed to help me. I need to help me. I need to work on me. I need to take that responsibility. And as long as I keep going to you for those answers, you're going to continue to give me answers, maybe even unconsciously, not selfishly, that are designed to make sure I stay ahead of you. Now, that starts to change the whole fabric of the story that I'm going to tell myself about why I need to work on me. Because I'm the one to save me. There have been at least one master on this planet that says, you have to do this for you. No one else is going to save you. You need to do this. Your ego takes that quote and says, well, in order to save me, I need to protect me, and I need to do everything for me, and I need to take everything from you to protect me, and I need to get you to make sure that everything that supports me. But that's your ego talking. Take the same philosophy and let your soul talk to you about that. And it will sound like this. I'm working on me so that I can truly and eventually be in service to you. And that's the difference maker. The source of that makes the difference. In spiritual terms, that's called intention. Intention makes the difference. Here's a great metaphor. Nuclear energy. If you take nuclear energy and you use your ego or you use your soul, my ego says, how do I create a weapon out of that so I make sure I'm in charge, I'm in power, I can force you to do whatever I want you to do? If I take my soul with that same thing called nuclear energy and I say, how does my soul apply that? Then all of a sudden it's about how do I give energy to everybody on this planet so that everybody has electricity. Source matters, guys. And connecting to that source would change this whole place.
I have a big question.
Holy crap.
That you made me think of, talking about the fabric of everything. Do you think that there will be a time in the future, and I'm just more curious than anything, do you think there will be a time in the future where everybody that's wearing a flesh suit, right? Everybody that's physically manifested on this planet will live to serve themselves and as a result collaborate and serve other people? Do you think there will be a time where you won't be challenged so intensely through negativity, divisiveness, loss, fatigue, etc., and that we'll all live in unity, kind of like a utopian society? Because if everybody listened to this podcast and read the book and started studying these masters and did the work themselves, you'd think, okay, everybody would live in a place of love and peace and unity. But and to go back to your book, in the Japanese kind of samurai culture, the Ronins, is that what they were called? The warring bands of kind of samurais that, were just being disruptive. Like even in a time like that, there was still battle. So anyway, my question is, can we get to a place in the future, or is the craziness just part of the journey?
So I'm going to answer the word is yes and.
I kind of figured.
I knew you would. You know me well. So do I believe, man, that is, of course, the great faith of things. And in faith, there's no certainty about that. There's no guarantee in it. And that's what faith is so cool, because I will tell you from my experience, whenever I'm 100% assured of something, I can deal with that for a short period of time, and then I get bored out of my mind. I do. I'm going to tell you. So I will say to myself, I want everything. I want to know exactly what's going to. No, you don't, David. You like this part. You like the gray. You like part of this chaos stuff, because there's an opportunity for me to be valuable, to be a solution in that place. And without that place, what's the purpose of me? So do I believe that this place is possible? I think it's written. I don't believe it's possible. I know that it's written, and here it is. Heaven on earth. That's the guide, man. That is the opportunity that we have as human beings to take spiritual energy and bring more of it onto this planet and shift the planet because of it. What it will mean over time is that we will have fewer and fewer need for chaos. But I also understand this physical plane has its purpose. And that purpose is for your soul to come here, embody this meat suit, if you will, this avatar suit, and have all the experience to go on, because that's the whole point of this physical plane, is for your soul to come here and do something it cannot do in the other dimension, which is have an experience. In the other dimension, as I understand it, everything is everything. You are the light. And so how would you describe yourself if everything is you, is the light, and you're in this big giant box, if you will, and it's all white around you? You're the light, it's white. How would you know yourself experientially without something being different within that box? So my understanding is this physical plane is designed so you can come and have a single experience of that which you say you are. So this place has purpose. Do I believe as human beings we could evolve where this place doesn't serve that purpose anymore? Yes, that's what we would call the utopian place. But this only means there's only one earth, one only place that we can go to. There are millions of places that we can go to, Nick, that just say, once you've completed this phase, you do move on to the next dimension, the next phase, based upon your evolution through experiences here in this physical plane. So this physical plane, this earth may not change, but you would change, thus inviting you to the next dimension where that stuff that you talk about exists already. So that would be my take.
Mind blown. I love how, going back to this book, Conversations with God, and again, I'm just a couple chapters in, but how the author is describing the importance of the relative, the importance of there not being the absolute, because in the absolute, like you just said, it's boring. There's nothing to know. It just is. And where's the fun in that? So to know yourself, to know the possibilities, you have to experience all of this. And I think once you see it through that lens, you can start to have true feeling gratitude for the experience that you're having. And that's like where I've landed right now, is just like that pure, beautiful gratitude. And I've had it, but it's like, I feel like now I'm actually experiencing it, because it's like, wow, look at these hands. Look at this pain. I have a pain in my hand right now. And I'm like, look at my little pain in my hand. What the heck is that about? Amazing. And it's beautiful. All right, Nick, before I ask our closing questions here, because I have a hard stop here in 10 minutes, unfortunately, do you have anything else that you want to ask? And I think we could probably talk these concepts and everything for probably a couple more hours.
You know what? For the sake of everybody else, I'll stop asking my large, complicated questions. But I'll just note that I downloaded Conversations with God, and I'm actually driving to my friend's baptism after this. I've got a couple hours in the car, so I'm going to listen, and I'll report back maybe during our next conversation.
Beautiful.
Outstanding.
All right, David, I don't want to end this, but I guess all good things must come to an end. It's part of the experience. But my last two questions are these. The first one is, where can people go to find out a little bit more about you, read your book, and look at all the stuff you're doing? Of course, we will link it in the show notes.
Sure. So our website is our best format, right? So samuraisuccess.com is our best way to reach us. Samurai_success is our Instagram. And then we're on LinkedIn as well. I think we actually have a YouTube channel. Again, this is all brand new to me about getting out there about this stuff. So again, that's why I have you guys, experts in my life, to help and coach me to be able to say, hey, in this physical plane, this is how this thing works. And so we're getting out there as best we can. But we've got so much content now since February of this year. We've done 35 podcasts, including this one, and all the small content, and then plus the 100 videos you guys helped us put together, for goodness sakes. And it was just, I really just want to thank you guys in a place of gratitude. You guys are such a master around this knowledge base. And I'm so grateful to have attracted you into my life so that you guys could show us the way, because you guys have accelerated what would have taken us decades, literally, to be able to do that. And I will tell you, turning decades into days is acceleration. And that's what you guys did so beautifully for us. And I just really wanted to thank you. I
love that. Thank you so much. And same goes to you. I mean, you're teaching us so much, and I feel like we're getting, I wouldn't even say decades. I think centuries of knowledge into hours, which is amazing. No pressure.
No pressure.
Now I just have to be like Nick and not be stubborn, and just learn from your experience. Oh man. Anyway, this has been such a great conversation. This is the final question, I promise. And it's this. When you pass away, all the information that you put out, the books, the website, all this content that you're doing, everything disappears, but you can leave the world with a single piece of advice, what would it be?
Wow. Okay, big questions throughout. Here's what's coming through. The most fascinating thing I've learned so far this lifetime, and I know there's a full map to be able to go to, full mountain ranges still to explore, but understanding that you're not here to discover who you are. No one else is going to tell you who you are. You are here to create who you are. And if you look at any single fascinating character in your life, I promise you, you're going to see this trait. And you could list off every top celebrity that we know of. They have consciously created this avatar. They have created who they say they are. And the most important part about that is once you create who you say you are, you must align your behaviors with that. That creates something called congruency. Congruency over time creates coherence. Coherence is your attractor factor for compelling your destiny to you. So I've just given you the magic formula that I've learned over the last 35 years of my life, condensed in that moment of understanding there is a formula for success in this physical plane. And every single person I've ever met falls into this. And I know I'm looking for confirmation bias at this point, like, hey, you doing that? It just seems to work. I mean, everybody I'm coaching and teaching this thing, they're like, holy crap, that worked again. It's amazing. So take that into consideration when you're doing this. Your identity, your self-created identity, or an identity created by someone else that you've accepted for you, is pulling forth your destiny. Choose wisely.
Wow. I'll just keep it there because I want to keep asking questions. This has been so much fun, David. Thank you so much. I cannot wait to talk to you again. What a blessing to know you.
Back at you guys. Thank you guys for your mastery and your time and everything else.